Born in the USA now. Born in the USA now. I don't care what the song is. Shot at the US of A now. Woo, America. The Gaslight Anthem. History books. Happy Halloween, motherfuckers! Yes. Schwint Daddy! Well, not full Schwint Daddy. Just little 80s Kurt Russell mullet going on here today. Yeah. Also, I had to do the Bruce Springsteen joke because, well, and plus I look like I'm sort of redneck-ish with this hair and shit, so America. Yeah. Yeah, and, this band's been compared to Bruce Springsteen. In fact, Bruce Springsteen's on his record, on the title track. Yes, he is, ladies and gentlemen. And it's a really good title track. It's one of the highlights of this record still. And there's a lot of more 80s influence on this record. Now, I don't know if some of that was, because I only heard the first two Brian Fallon solo records since the breakup, but I've never heard any of Fallon's solo stuff since, leading up to this reunion. And if that sort of affected this record or not. But apparently they have a thing for some of, I guess, the more 80s Springsteen and Tom Petty stuff, musically it seems a little bit in some of what they're doing here. I do like Autumn a little bit, and I love the fact that they did time this right from some moments lyrically in this record. Hell, the track Autumn feels like it would fit perfectly sitting on the front porch just watching the leaves fall, and I think they literally referenced Halloween time in the song in the beginning of some of the first lyrics at the beginning of Michigan 1975. So, which is nice, but for the most part, this album is sort of it's not a very heavy sounding record to me. It's definitely more on the softer side. Usually, I don't know what number album this is, to be fair. 6th. Okay, that's odd then, because usually outside of the debut and maybe the last record, it's usually even numbered records for me that wind up being really, really good. This apparently is not the case with this one. I like it. And I've talked about the Menzingers record. I like this more than the Menzingers record. Or at least I get more out of it from a songwriting perspective than the Menzingers record. I get if more people draw to that more sonically and less of the more Bruce Springsteen worship that mostly kind of happens on this record a little bit. And yes, History Books is one of them, but that one makes sense, and it works with the Bruce Springsteen feature, nonetheless, which was something I think fans have been longing for a long, long time, and not a bad choice to have it with your title track, which follows up this opening track I just played, Spider Bites. It's just a fine track. I guess one of the highlights in a way, and it's technically kind of different, I guess, in a way, that at least gives you the idea that they're going to go for that, because I think there's some, even on the Weatherman and I think Empires maybe, and certain moments I think on it. To me, the heavier sounding tracks to me, from a more rockin' standpoint, are Positive Charge, Little Fires, and I Live in the Room Above Her. For me. With Little Fires specifically being the closest thing this band has gotten to that classic folk punk sound of Sink or Swim. Straight up. Straight up as close as it gets. Maybe not nearly as produced as well. It's more, or at least it's more punk rock, straight up punk rock. in its own right. If not somewhat closer to like Clash's brand of like post-punk or something. You know what I mean? Which has that more proto-punk flavor to it, you know what I mean? That brand of post-punk that's more inspired by American proto-punk as opposed to like German rock or anything like that. So, but yeah, it's, oh man. Like, I can't, like, for the old school ones, I love the Sink or Swim era. Little Fires is going to be a huge recommend, dude. Huge recommend. I get if you don't want to take me seriously because of this fucking wig. But you got to, you know. You got to. The Weatherman, more lyrically, it's more about. Also, Positive Charge really is really one of the better, definitely both better written and more energetic cuts for sure. Well, the heavier and more, or at least more energetic cuts is what I should have been saying about those 3 tracks I mentioned. If you do decide to come back to anything, you could with Spider Bites and of course the title track. I'd still go back to Autumn and it still kind of works for me. The Weatherman is interesting. It's basically a dude that's basically kind of trying to figure out a woman, and it's attempting to predict her moves, predict what she'll do the same way a meteorologist predicts the weather, essentially. Which was kind of interesting. Though I do feel like they ended us a little softly on A Lifetime of Preludes, but it's fine. And it's a good little duetish thing, I guess, for a ballad, I guess. But yeah, the highlights, but it's still like, you know, when it comes to Gaslight Anthem, genuinely I think they're a solid record, but to me, I don't know if I can say this album hits anywhere near as well as what I believe I felt about their last record, but I know I felt for sure on Unwritten, the 59 Sound and Sink or Swim, which are still, I guess, my top 3 at this point with this band. Personally, number 3, I might put the recent album at 4, and I maybe put this one at 5. And it might have more to do with like Positive Charge and Little Fires. And I Live in the Room Above Her being part of the reason for why I would. But I'm still debating on whether or not I like this more than American Slang or the record, or if I like it more. I'm debating on whether or not I like it more than American Slang. That's tough to say. I could see some people putting it low, but even still, like, I sort of get why Rocked put this at a 7 out of 10, but I'm glad he didn't go lower, because it doesn't deserve to be lower than that. I can almost slightly understand someone giving it an 8. But I get 7. It's still really, really good, and it's solid. A surefire solid record. Which I'm very glad that they still have that ability to still keep this band solid. This band is still solid, and it's still worth wanting to listen to, you know? And it doesn't make me not feel, even if it doesn't live up to being close to knocking out of the park and being that massive of a comeback, it still hits just right for me, personally. As a fan of Gaslight Anthem stuff, I somewhat, from a writing standpoint, I still prefer, I will give this, I get if more people sonically venture more to the recent Menzingers, but I mean, I feel like that compared to what having heard it after the party and how genuinely great to Almost Masterclass that was, why some people feel after the party was blah blah blah. While as with this band, I feel like they've always found a way to, even more so ever since 59 Sound, they've been consistently showing their roots in more heartland rock and inspired inspired folk punk, indie folk, or at least they went more indie folk, I guess you could say, in terms of Since 59 sound, as opposed to being folk punk. But they still have some punky tendencies here and there. But yeah. But at least leaning into post-punk, if not, some new wave. I guess there's a little bit of that, or at least more like the Tom Petty new wave stuff. If not, maybe Buddy Holly or something. Not sure. Or whoever. But anyways. Overall, as a Gaslight Anthem fan, keeping it real. They keeping it real. Keeping it real. A light to strong keeping it real. Barely and just enthusiastically enough in the strong portion that I almost want to give it horns. Almost. But I can't quite get it there. I've heard better albums this year, unfortunately, but I'm happy and satisfied as a Gaslight Anthem fan. And that they also, were willing to venture into new territory, on top of trying to somewhat retrospectively, in a way, satisfy the fan base from their past catalogs. Well, maybe Brian Fallon bringing something else in. He probably was doing and other stuff. I don't know what the other band members were doing musically in other ventures before this reunion or return or whatever. But yeah, this was really... But yeah, I liked this record. Did I want to love this record? Yeah, it's disappointing in that regard. But there's enough good things that happen in here. And when you do get to the energetic cuts, they really stand out in the best way possible. And so they still, in those moments, have it in them to make pretty good energetic cuts that show they can rock the heck out. So, yeah. What did you guys think of the Gaslight Anthem history books? Leave a comment below, let me know. Before I close out, I want to give a couple shout-outs to a couple other records I did get a chance to listen to, but I'm not going to review. I may or may not put it in my catch-up for the year. By this point, y'all are probably leaving. But if you want to know more of what I checked out, I checked out the recent Autopsy. I'm not going to show the album cover. It's probably going to be too much and get demonetized in the future. Ashes, Organs, Blood, and Crypts by Autopsy. I said, screw it. Might as well check them out, since some of the members involved in this band not only were involved in death, but also were involved in Static Abyss. I believe I talked about that record. If I haven't, I'm going to eventually. We'll see. I checked out the Omen by a Virtue. It's fine. I guess I started to get to them because True Colors was one of the tracks that was actually pretty decent. There was some production issues in the verses cleans that should have been pushed up just as much as the chorus, and then there's Floating, and the track Floating featuring Roy Rodriguez of I'm forgetting the band. I don't know why I'm forgetting the bands that he's in, but and it's bothering me because I talked about this band before, so forgive me if you want to comment, and because I'm going to blank on it because I don't want to overstep my time here. Ghost Idols I wish was a better closer, but it's whatever. I feel like it just loses itself after True Colors, but it's fine. I feel like it goes a little too far into trying to venture into the pop territory, and I would call it more a pop metal record, but not in the most highest recommendation way that I would a Electric Callboy, for that matter, or at least their particular brand of electronic core. But anyways, though on the metalcore side, I would instead recommend The Sin of Human Frailty. Now, usually I don't care for the more grindcore sound, and there is that kind of here, but for some reason, the way it's handled and executed here, it actually kind of works. And plus, you can feel the super and supergroup here, and there are moments like into tracks like Thaw, featuring Debbie Goff, that they go industrial, and it kind of works even more. In fact, there was a member, Dillinger Escape Plan, involved in this group, but he's not in it anymore. But there are members of other groups, including Will Putney, of all people, who already with the help of Greg Pachado and the rest of what was, and like 3/5 or 6 of what was Every Time I Die. Nice band, Better Lovers. You know how I feel about that thing. So, in that regard, I had to check this out. So, and which is this album here. American Gothic by Wayfarer. Western themed black metal. US folk metals. US branded folk metal / black metal kind of a thing. Almost bordering melodic black metal. This is another way of how you produce black metal that we need. But more impressively, to me, is the fact that I finally found it. I finally found a Christian metal band that's new and doesn't suck. And I want to thank Heavy Metal Philosophy for putting it in his top 5, particularly at number 4. And that album is The Offering by Testimony of Apocalypse. Apparently their second record, following apparently an album that came out previous year. And the fact that he gave this, wish that this was what he listened to back in the day because he felt like all the Christian metal back then was garbage. I don't fully agree with that. There are moments where most of that probably was. But, I mean, maybe Christian metal in general might have been. I don't know if I would say anything in the more rock alternative or punk or maybe hardcore territories. Maybe. But yeah, I mean, there still was Demon Hunter. That was decent. I still think they're kind of one of the more consistent bands. But I understand if, some people aren't feeling Demon Hunter and need something a little bit more, got a little more fire under its butt. And this does. Oh, hell, if you listen to the album cover, it's got some fire under Jesus. Some holy fire. On his hands, actually. Yeah, I love how to make Jesus badass. You have a song called Holier Than Thou, and no, it is not a Metallica cover. I thought it was going to be. It is not. Hold your horses. I do think it's more front-loaded but I still like this thing. Oh my God. I just feel refreshed to know that there is still some really, really good Christian metal out there, And apparently I was recommended some other band that's been around, Becoming the Archetype is apparently Christian band. I had no idea about that. I'm not sure that's legit. But for newer ones, Testimony of Apocalypse, The Offering is, it slaps. It slaps really hard. It's very groove thrash oriented in a melodic metal, and that kind of leans in that new wave British heavy metal, melodic metalcore, melodic death metal kind of way. Did I say British heavy metal? I meant American heavy metal. New wave American heavy metal. Sorry. But yeah, it's really... And the cleans are nice. Especially on The Time Has Come. For the chorus. Which I was like, especially for people like who need a Christian metal... On the Christian side, they need a good metal band. Here you go. So, I apologize for running this a little longer than I thought. I was hoping to get through all this done, but I guess I let my skit get the best of me. But anyways, What did you think of my recommendations as well? Leave a comment and let me know about those as well. Not just about the new album I just talked about. And as always, guys, keep it random, keep it real, keep it rocking. I will see you in the next video. Take care, y'all. Woo! America!